About 4,000 staff from Inland Revenue and the Ministry of Business Innovation and Employment (MB) took to the streets around the country today to protest for fairer pay increases. Rallies were held in 9 cities, while in some areas staff chose to ditch their office desk to volunteer instead. Katie Doyle reports.
Thousands of staff from MB and IRD walked off the job today in protest of their latest pay offer, which they say simply isn't enough in the face of rising living costs. In Auckland, around 100 staff converged on the busy intersection at Queen and Victoria Streets, waving placards and calling for better pay. An IRD staff member, Troy, says 1 in 4 Public Service Association members there are earning $48,000 or less.
It's fair enough if that's a starting salary, but it's not. Some of them have actually been with the department for a very long time and they're still getting very low income. So it's really just wanting to make sure that their salary goes up in order to meet the rising cost of everyday living.
The Assistant Secretary at the PSA, Basil Prestige, says they hope to send a message that IRD and MB workers expect fair treatment.
So MB, there's talks again on Wednesday, so we're hopeful that things can progress, but we'll wait and see. IRD, we haven't got any other talks arranged at this point.
He says around 300 staff across both agencies aren't even earning the living wage of $20.55. In Nelson, PSA members opted to turn their strike action into community work, planting trees and shrubs at Tahuanui Beach. Local organiser Josh Gardner says wet weather meant a planned beach clean-up was abandoned.
And we've changed our plans today to come in and do some tree planting or shrub planting in the local area down at Tahuna Beach, so it's still in the same vicinity.
Richard Wilson, a compliance officer with Immigration New Zealand in Nelson, was among those who turned out in the rain. He says while the focus is on the strike action and getting a good outcome, they also want to do something that gives back to the community.
Very rarely do we get opportunities as public servants to give back to the community, and we just thought this might be a good way of showing the public that yes, we are out on strike, but we actually want to do something constructive as well.
Mr Wilson has been with the department for 14 years and says it's not the first time they've taken industrial action. In fact, none of the department's collective employment agreements have been settled through normal negotiation. Each has been the subject of industrial action.
Which is a real shame, because I work for an employer that, I think is in general tries to be a good employer. But I think when it comes to employment relations, we could possibly see some improvements there.
In Wellington, Rachel Felgate, who is part of MB's research and evaluation team, says the agency expects staff to do extra work, but isn't willing to pay for it. She says MB has failed to listen to its employees' concerns.
We have put to MB what we think is a fair deal to keep our pay up, and MB have turned around and basically said no, so we're trying to encourage them to change their minds on that. Basically, they're asking us to start working for free.
Benjamin from the IRD says he joined the Wellington strike because it's ridiculous that some staff aren't paid a living wage, despite being government employees.
We just want a fair pay increase. So far IR has just said no to everything, and I don't think that the PSA's requests are unreasonable. They're actually very reasonable based on the standard for the rest of the country.
No one would reveal what the current offer includes, but the union described the pay increases it is requesting as modest. A second 2-hour-long strike is set for the 23rd of July. For Checkpoint in Wellington, Katie Doyle, Tēnei.